Waking up the next day, Shiro was greeted with a rather cold house due to her actions yesterday. After eating the breakfast that Een had made, which was quite tasty thanks to Shiro's efforts as the test subject for the 3 weeks, the party prepared to make their way to the Adventurers Guild. They were also reunited with Helion and Madison, who seemed severely drained from their training. When asked about what they did, the two only sighed and shook their heads. "What did you even do with them?" Koji asked Chelsea while glancing towards Helion and Madison. Taking a sip of his morning coffee, he couldn't help but shake his head at the state of the two frontliners. "Nothing much. I just took them around a little and had them go through a few contests of strength. If they want to become proper frontliners, they need to be able to wrestle a young dragon at their level." Chelsea huffed as Koji almost dropped his coffee. "You what now? I had them wrestle young dragons to build up their strength. They passed just barely, but I can say that they're reliable frontliners now," Chelsea replied while stretching her body. "Right? The hell happened to your house?" Chelsea asked while pointing towards destruction that Shiro had caused. "My daughter is what happened." Koji sighed and drank the rest of his coffee. Raising her eyebrow, Chelsea shrugged and made her way inside. Meanwhile, Shiro had just finished talking to her mom. "Take care out there. If you can't find anyone to take you to Mount Olympus, you can always come back and we'll take you there ourselves. We haven't got the teleport shrine, but I'm sure it shouldn't take too long if we fly. They're at full speed." Mio smiled. "It's okay, Mom. No need to go out of your way like that. I can handle it." Shiro shook her head, giving her mother and father a hug. She waved to Stanley and started to walk towards the Adventurers Guild with the rest of the party. Arriving at the Adventurers Guild, the party was stopped by a woman who Shiro recognized as Sherry's. "They found the other sites for your daughter's inheritance. This map will show you where they are." Sherry smiled as Shiro raised her eyebrow. Taking the map, Shiro looked back at Sherry's. "You seem to be in a rush." "Well, there are quite a few things that I need to do. I am quite a popular merchant, you know." Sherry's laughed. "Anyways, I've given you what you need. I'll take my leave now." Sherry's bowed and disappeared from her spot. Storing her map away, Shiro turned to Een. "We'll get the rest of your inheritance once we finish the god trials, okay? Don't worry about it, Mom. It's not like the inheritance is going anywhere." Een smiled. "You never know, darling. You never know." Entering the guild, Shiro quickly registered a request for someone to teleport them to Greece. Thankfully, as this was a rather large city near the front lines, there were plenty of adventurers and quite a few of them had what the party needed. Choosing the cheapest one, they quickly met up and made their way to the teleport shrine. Once they arrived at the teleport shrine, they didn't waste any time and immediately teleported away. Arriving at the teleport shrine located in a newly established city after the world changed, the party separated with the adventurers after giving them their payment, checking her funds that she had accumulated over the course of her adventures. Shiro couldn't help but feel as though she'd never run out of money. Plus, the weapons and armors that they need were being made by Helion, so they're not exactly short of equipment either. "I'm feeling rich, but we got nothing to spend it on." Shiro chuckled as the rest of the party agreed. "Well, everything we need is being provided now. Unless we wanted some expensive food, we'll probably not be spending a lot of money since we can make what we need. Helion with the armor, Aram with the clothes, and you with literally everything else, including a house." Lyrica smiled. "She's right." Aram nodded. "Also, it seems like you quite like the pink turtleneck. Don't get me wrong. I'm not complaining. It's just that you seemed against it at the start." She raised her eyebrow. Asterisk cough. "What?" "It's comfy." Shiro glanced to the side with a slightly embarrassed expression. "Yeah, just like the giant plush, Nibbles, that's in your room." Aram chuckled. Ignoring Aram's teasing about her love of cute and comfy things, Shiro made her way out of the teleport shrine. Currently, they were in the city of Ednea, which was founded once people found the teleport shrine that was near Mount Olympus. To make it easier for foreigners to prepare for the god trials, everything that people needed to know could be found in the city along with a few places of relaxation. Naturally, brothels were included as the party immediately saw one near the entrance of the teleport shrine, which caused their smiles to twitch since its placement was rather obvious. But when they consider the nature of Greek mythology, especially Zeus' procreating habits, this wasn't much of an anomaly anymore. In fact, it was a rather good tribute to the god himself as they had even carved a statue of him with his name glowing with magic just outside the establishment. "Let's walk around that place, shall we?" Shiro suggested as the party nodded their heads in agreement. After all, walking in front of a brothel which had a nude statue of Zeus was rather awkward. Making their way around the place, they found a cafe that had a rather decent view of the mountain itself. Taking a seat near the window, the party each ordered a few snacks before looking up some information about the trials. They want to know as much as possible so that they can prepare for it. After all, while they were looking through the information available online, a woman walked up to their tablet and smiled. "The branch master has informed me of your eventual arrival. I shall assist you during your time in this city along with any questions you have for the god trials. You may call me Linhwa." Linhwa smiled as Chunyu widened his eyes and looked away while trying to hide his face. Seeing this, Sylvia's smile twitched and looked at Linhwa. "By branch master, I'm assuming that it's Nantian, right? Since both of you are under him, perhaps you know each other?" Sylvia asked while pointing towards Chunyu. "Yes, we do. I lost my first kiss to him." Linhwa glanced towards Chunyu with a small blush, crack. Breaking his cup by accident, Chunyu felt his life at danger. "It was CPR. We had no healers at the time, so I had to do emergency CPR." Chunyu quickly explained as Sylvia narrowed her eyes. "Why are you so afraid of a small misunderstanding?" Sylvia smiled. "As long as nothing else happens, I'm fine." "Got it. You're my man, and I won't forgive you if you cheat." Sylvia narrowed her eyes as the party couldn't help but raise their eyebrow at her sudden declaration. Whistle. "Damn, look at her go. How bold." Nimue chuckled. "Indeed. Really making her position known, huh? Tell me about it. Maybe you should do the same." "I'm not going to go up to Nantian and shout out you're my man. I never said anything about Nan. Tian." Blocking her mind from her mana realm, Shiro started to sip her orange juice with blood rushing up to her face. With her pink turtleneck, she looked especially cute with the embarrassed expression. "So Linhwa, what can you tell us about the god trials?" Shiro asked as the party was being derailed by Sylvia's declaration. "All right, to get to the top of the mountain, there is only one way, and that is through the stairway of divinity. With each step that you take, the pressure that you experience will increase. While you're on the stairway, you will see statues of each god in the Greek pantheon, and should you want to do their trials, all you have to do is place your hand on the statue itself and insert your mana. The higher you go, the higher rank the gods are, and naturally, the rewards also increase. At the very top of the mountain are the strongest gods in the Greek pantheon. However, gods aren't the only ones. Demigods such as Heracles can be found as well. There are also trials of powerful monsters that can measure up to the gods as well." Linhwa explained as Shiro nodded her head. "Is there a statue of Nyx, the goddess of night?" she asked. I'm not sure about that since she is a primordial goddess. The highest that anyone has reached was Zeus' statue, so I can't say for sure unless you go up there yourself." Linhwa shook her head. "I see." Shiro nodded her head. Glancing towards the mountain in the distance, Shiro guessed that she'll have to get to the very top in order to reach her. After talking to Linhwa for a little longer, the party understood a little more about the god trials. Each god had a different trial depending on their divinity. For example, Helion was most likely going to choose the Hephaestus trial, and that trial required him to forge good pieces of equipment as for the goddess Aphrodite. Shiro didn't want to imagine. After all, Aphrodite wanted to make Shiro her chosen, and that would have been a rather interesting trial. Making their way towards the staircase that could be seen even from the city, Shiro turned to Linhwa and asked about Nantian's whereabouts. "The branch master has already exited seclusion as a Tier 6 entity. He's just solidifying his foundations right now as he is still not quite used to the power. This is why he wanted me to escort you girls instead, as he is currently busy," Linhwa explained as Shiro sighed in relief. "So Nantian succeeded. That's good." Shiro smiled. "Are you worried about the branch master?" Linhwa asked curiously. "Well, isn't it natural that I'll be worried? Who knows if he'll run into trouble while classing up?" Shiro shrugged. "You don't have to worry about that since everyone in the sect was keeping watch on the branch master. The sect master has already passed down the order that during this time, no one is to disturb the branch master and make sure that he is safe." Linhwa replied as Shiro nodded her head. Making their way towards the staircase, the The party could already see a few people walking up and statues could be seen in the distance, which represented the lesser gods. This is as far as I can take you since those who have cleared the trials once cannot clear it again. Or rather, they don't have the qualifications to take it again since the gods are rather petty. They don't want to take another's leftovers. Manhwa explained with a shrug. In any case, I wish you lot good luck in your journey up the mountain. I shall await here for your return, as this is the task handed to me by the branch master. She bowed. Looking at the staircase, Shiro glanced towards her party members and nodded her head. Let's go. Shiro grinned. Taking the first step, she could already feel a faint pressure weigh down on her as she raised her eyebrow. However, this pressure was rather negligible and Shiro took another step with ease. The party was the same and could keep up the same pace with Shiro. The higher they traveled, the more people they found sitting by the side and drinking some water with stressed-out expressions. When they saw the party walking up without any signs of fatigue, they wondered who they were as not many could walk up the stairs so effortlessly. Especially for Shiro, she looked as though she was taking a stroll in the park. Time passed, and the party continued higher up the mountain. At this point, things were becoming rather difficult even for Shiro, as each step felt like she was carrying a mountain on her back. But rather than physical burden, it was more psychological as their bodies weren't strained. Only their mind was, and each step had to be taken while trying to keep their focus as they continued up the mountain. The steps soon became personal trials as all distractions were cast aside. They started to lose vision of their party members, as it was only them and their own will. Shiro had tried to communicate with Nimue only to find out that she could not, meaning that she had to walk up the stairs alone. A rather annoying trial, I must say. Shiro muttered with a soft smile since she wanted to see her party member and encourage them to go further. That way, they can support each other up the journey, but it seemed like the gods have other plans. Shaking her head, Shiro continued to walk up the steps, never looking back. Shiro couldn't see how high up the mountain she was as her focus was the top. My, so you're the girl that Aphrodite and Athena were fighting over. A voice rang out as Shiro was surprised since she had been on her own for a while, but looked towards the source. Floating there with a rather cheerful grin was an illusionary image of a child. The child had wavy blonde hair and a set of brown eyes, which surveyed Shiro. He wore a pair of shoes with crested wings on the side, which gave Shiro an idea of his identity. Hermes, I presume? Shiro asked with a smile. Indeed, it is I, Hermes, the messenger of the gods. Hermes bowed as Shiro continued her steps. So what brings you to me? Am I not to continue to the top since Nyx wanted a meeting with me? Shiro asked, feeling rather happy about some company since walking up the stairs was rather boring. With a cute Nigerian Ire Epsilon, because I am curious. The gods are rather greedy over you, I suppose, for a lack of a better word. Aphrodite wants you because of your beauty. Athena wants you because of your strength, wisdom, and the desire to protect this world. There are others who want you as well, including Hestia and even Hera. One is the virgin goddess, while the other is the goddess of marriage and childbirth. You reach out to quite a diverse audience now. Hermes raised his eyebrow. What can I say? I have 3 children, but the most I've done is hold hands. Shiro laughed. Indeed. I'll tell you this, though. Even the Titans are interested in you. Namely, Kronos, so be careful. Hermes warned. Wasn't Kronos the one that tried to eat his children? Shiro raised her eyebrow. Yes, and Zeus is still rather unhappy about that. Hermes laughed. The two do fight occasionally, but they're unable to kill one another because of the system's intervention. I see. Should I be happy or sad that they want me? Shiro shrugged. If it was me, I'd say sad. Having gods fight over you isn't as great as some would presume. Regardless of who you choose, there are some who will attempt to kill you with the thought that if I can't have them, no one can. Hermes sighed while glancing towards the top of the mountain. Luckily for you, it's Nyx, who has her eye on you so the others can't do much about it. After all, her identity is rather special even to the system. Hermes reassured. Speaking of which, since you're the messenger, it means that you know a lot of things, right? Shiro asked. Yup. Then can you tell me about who the figure that Nyx said has her eye on me? She never mentioned the name, but it seems like Nyx has some respect for her. Shiro asked as Hermes' eyes flickered with a knowing light. Naturally, this did not escape Shiro's notice. You know, don't you? Shiro narrowed her eyes. Maybe, maybe not. I can't give all the information away without a price. Hermes shrugged, shaking her head. Shiro flicked her finger at Hermes' nose, and to his surprise, she could actually touch him. Huh, what? Are you surprised that I can touch you? Shiro grinned. Flickering on her finger was a few red circuits that had allowed her to extract a portion of Ikari's soul. With her passive skill scholar, it was only natural that she could utilize the element to some extent. Though if she wanted, she could extract Hermes' soul right now and try to get a skill. The success rate was unknown, but it was worth a shot. Feeling danger, Hermes made some distance between them as Shiro laughed. Don't worry, I ain't gonna kill you. But you can if you want, no? He narrowed his eyes, seeing a god hide behind a statue of another god. Shiro only laughed. Maybe, maybe not. I can't give all the information away without a price. She shrugged as Hermes pouted a little, but shook his head. There's no point in telling you since Nyx has ordered me not to. All I can say is that you need to be respectful towards her. Hermes sighed. Got it. Will I see the other gods then, or are you the only one? Shiro asked. I'm probably the only one. Thanks to my divinity, I'm able to create an avatar without too much sacrifice as long as I obey the rules. The others aren't the same, so unless they really want to talk to you, I doubt that they'll make an avatar. Hermes shrugged. However, just as he said this, a similar godly aura appeared as a beautiful woman appeared in front of them. Are you sure about that? The others are coming soon. They're still making their avatar since their rank is higher than mine. The woman smiled softly as Hermes scratched his head in wonder. They want to talk to her that much? Yes. The woman chuckled and turned to Shiro. Nice to meet you. I'm Artemis, goddess of the hunt. Sup, the name's Shiro. Shiro waved leisurely as Hermes couldn't help but force a smile at her attitude with a goddess. Haha, I know your name. I also know that you use a bow that's been blessed by one of my friends. Her name is Asteria. You should remember her. Artemis chuckled. She was a beautiful woman with silver hair that was tinged with a pale blue, and her crystal-like eyes peered into Shiro's with interest. All right, Asteria is the Titan goddess of stars, right? Well, she is the goddess of oracles, prophetic dreams, and so on, but yes, stars are a part of her divinity. Artemis laughed. So you said that the other gods are also making avatars to meet me, right? Why are they so interested? Shiro asked while making sure that she kept going up the staircase. After all, there was a chance that all of this could just be a trial to prevent her from reaching the top. Well, there are a few reasons, one of which is the power of your nanobots. We understand a portion of their power due to the garden that you originated from, Arya. However, in this garden, you seem to have evolved them beyond their initial power limit. Artemis tapped her chin and replied with a smile. Evolved them past their initial power limit? What do you mean? Shiro raised her eyebrow since from what she remembers, her nanobots are pretty much the same except for a few minor differences. Think of it this way. As gods, we are able to somewhat understand what we're dealing with, such as the person's potential. When we reviewed your nanobots for the first time, it felt like it was a toothpick. Sure, it hurts and it may puncture an eye, but it won't kill us. However, seeing it again now, it's like a giant ballista bolt. The potential that your class holds can now kill us for sure, hence why the gods are anxious about you and are currently fighting over you. Artemis shrugged. And you can tell me this because I don't find much use in being anxious. From what I've gathered, you're not a person to go on a genocidal rampage because of a whim. For example, you don't just wake up thinking I want to kill a city full of people. Therefore, rather than trying to eliminate you or bringing you under us, I'd much rather let you be and watch from the side. Artemis replied while floating beside Shiro. Interesting. What if I do want to kill you though? Like Hermes has experienced. I can touch your avatar, and if I'm feeling a little frisky, I might just rip out your source code for a skill. After all, a god's power is pretty tempting. Shiro smiled darkly as circuits started to appear on her hand. I trust that you won't do it, but if my belief is wrong, then that's just me playing with fire and getting burned in the process. Artemis smiled but made no effort to make some distance while Hermes was still hiding behind her. Shrugging her shoulders, Shiro continued up the stairs. After a few short moments, two lights appeared in front of them as voices of arguing women could be heard. Why are you coming here as well, Cowdits? Haven't you seen that she isn't a slut like you? So what cutting board? Haven't you seen her potential as a charmer? If she plays her cards right, she can have all the men in the world under her thumb, ignoring the ugly ones, of course. Rather than rule with beauty and sexual favors, she's more suited to rule with wisdom and power. I don't know what kind of divine mushroom you smoked, but it's clearly the wrong one. Bah, are you sure you're not the one who's high? Have you seen her? Do you honestly think she's patient enough to deal with the bullsh*t that people speak if she tries to rule with wisdom? Looking at the two women who were fighting while materializing in front of them, Shiro could already guess their identity. I apologize about their display, but they are indeed the goddess of love and beauty, Aphrodite, and the goddess of wisdom and war, Athena. Artemis said with a slightly forced smile. Aphrodite was a rather slender woman with long jet black hair that flowed down her back. Her dress was rather revealing, but it never revealed too much, leaving much to one's imagination. The aura that she released was soothing, and even Shiro felt mesmerized for a moment before snapping out of its for Athena. She had long brown hair which swayed gently behind her with every step, adorned with a golden crown-like ornament and armor which overlapped her white dress. Her aura was one that was befitting of a goddess of her nature, strong, stern, and righteous. One would think to kneel before her, but Shiro only felt awkwardness, as the words coming out of her mouth were rather extreme and contradicted her aura. Once their bodies fully materialized, they turned their attention to Shiro, who was still walking up the stairs while ignoring the two. So you're the one who rejected my class before. I am Aphrodite, the goddess of beauty, and I must say, you are a fine-looking woman. Aphrodite introduced herself while eyeing Shiro with large amounts of interest. Thanks for the compliment, but I don't want to sleep with everyone in the world. Shiro dismissed and walked past Aphrodite. Seeing this, Athena had a smug grin on her face while looking at Aphrodite, while Hermes only sighed and decided to keep himself from being noticed for. Now, I knew you wouldn't like that woman's methods. While I am sad that you did not become my chosen, I understand your choice, seeing as your potential is rather impressive right now. I am the goddess of wisdom and war, Athena, pleased to meet you. Athena did a slight bow as Shiro nodded her head. Sup? Shiro waved lightly, shaking Athena's hand. She continued up the steps. Seeing Shiro dismiss the too high-ranking goddess without batting an eye, Artemis couldn't help but chuckle under her breath. I'm Athena, the goddess of wisdom and war. Athena repeated just to make sure that Shiro heard her properly, since people hadn't dismissed gods in such a manner before. And I'm Shiro. Shiro waved her hand once more before ignoring the two. Her only goal here was to get to the top, and these two were acting as distractions right now. You know, people usually give gods their attention in order to not draw their ire. Aphrodite warned as Shiro only shrugged. Well, thank F***ck, I'm a monster then. PFT. Ha cough. Quickly cutting her laugh off, Artemis flickered from the area. Since Aphrodite's face of disbelief was something that Artemis hadn't seen before, without his shield, Hermes bowed to the two goddesses and quickly fled the scene as well. So you're not afraid of a god's wrath? Aphrodite narrowed her eyes with a frown. Bite me. I already have a few gods wanting to kill me. 1 or 2 more isn't going to make a difference at my level. Plus, I don't think you can kill me right now with the restrictions that are in place. Shiro chuckled. She's right, you know. However, that is not the same for after the new age starts. Athena raised her eyebrows at Shiro. True, but I'm pretty sure there are quite a few mortals bad-mouthing gods all the time now. Yes, but none have bad-mouthed the gods while standing in front of us. Athena smiled. Then I guess I'm the first. So why are you here? I'm pretty sure that you know I won't be working as your chosen or anything like that. Shiro asked. Sweat started to drip from her face at this point, as she hadn't stopped climbing up the staircase. While she didn't know how high she was, she knew that she had been climbing for a rather long time now, and each step posed some difficulty compared to the one she took at the start. I'm not sure about Cowdits, but I'm just here to see you with my own eyes. After all, there is a difference with seeing things with your own eyes and seeing them from a screen. And I must say, even in front of gods, your attitude doesn't change. While I do find it rather humorous, other gods might not have the same sentiment, so you should be careful. While you are not my chosen, I can bestow you with another reward. Athena smiled. Does it have any drawbacks or requirements? Shiro asked. None. Just think of it as a gift I gave you for free. So long as you don't violate certain morals without a good reason, then this blessing will stay with you for as long as you live. Go for it then. I'm not going to be refusing a free gift. Shiro smiled. You have received Athena's blessing. When you are leading an army to either invade or defend a territory, you can encourage the entire army and increase their stats by 20% for 5 hours. Cost. N/A cooldown. 10 hours. Reading the gift, Shiro was surprised that Athena was actually telling the truth. Seems like you didn't expect me to actually give you a proper gift. Athena chuckled. Well, I've had a rather bad impression of gods thanks to an old enemy of mine. Shiro shrugged. I suppose one bad fruit, then people think the whole batch is bad. While that may be the case for a few gods, do remember that not all of us are evil. Even some who may have a questionable divinity are in fact rather kind. Athena shook her head. Are you talking about me? Aphrodite smiled. F***ck no. You can go suck a D***ck. Oh wait, you already do. Athena rolled her eyes as Aphrodite felt like a vein was about to burst open from annoyance. But I suppose you are somewhat good, albeit a little forcefully. Athena shrugged before turning towards Shiro once more. I've already given you my blessing, so my goal is complete. This avatar is already running out of power, so I'll be taking my leave. But before I go, I have a tip for you. Leaning closer to Shiro's ear, Athena opened her mouth and whispered, be careful of Zeus. Don't ignore him, but don't pay him too much attention. After saying her line, she flickered from her spot and disappeared. That damn woman. You never know if you should be happy or angry with her. Aphrodite huffed. Anyways, I don't really have a blessing for you since my powers are quite intimate with both genders. Though, if you want, I can boost your bedtime prowess. Aphrodite offered as Shiro immediately shook her head. I'll be fine. I figured. However, I do have connections to a few other gods, so I'll get them to give you a gift, okay? She smiled. Oh, what gods are you talking about? Shiro asked as she knew that Aphrodite slept with quite a few of them. Poseidon, Ares, and even little Hermes if you include him. Though let's say that he changed his form a little so that I won't go to bed with him, but that hasn't stopped me yet. Aphrodite licked her lips as Shiro looked at her with disappointment. If there's an FBI equivalent for gods, I'm pretty sure you'll be one of the main offenders. Not important, but I'll get them to give you a gift later. Ares and Poseidon probably won't come to meet you though. Aphrodite shrugged, flickering from her spot. She wanted to give Shiro a kiss on the cheeks when cold steel blocked her lips. Shame. Aphrodite shrugged and faded from the spot. Funnily enough, the makeshift sword that Shiro had conjured up at the last moment received a small blessing from Aphrodite due to the kiss. Charm of Aphrodite. Enemies hit by this weapon have an 80% chance to be charmed if they're part of the same species or similar. For others, it is reduced to 50%. When charmed, they will do everything for you so long as it follows their line of thought. Should you damage them, the charm is cancelled. If you order them to kill themselves without a good reason, the charm is cancelled. Nigeria Nairobi looking at the sword. Shiro couldn't help but sigh. I don't even know if I should keep this sword or just destroy it. Shiro muttered. You should probably keep it. Unfortunately, you were quite hasty in making it, so the overstructure seems a little weak and it'll probably break in 1 or 2 uses, but it's still going to be handy. Hermes popped his head out from behind a statue. So you and Aphrodite, huh? Shiro raised her eyebrow. Asterisk cough. A mistake of my youth, I guess. I even got my father to help me out as well. Doesn't really help the fact that he also better, huh? Hermes coughed awkwardly. No sh*t. Shiro rolled her eyes. So you're going to give me a gift as well, I suppose? She asked as Hermes nodded. I was going to give you it anyways, but Aphrodite just sort of decided without my agreement. Hermes shrugged. Snapping his fingers, a pair of winged sigils appeared on Shiro's boosts. Blessing of Hermes. 1-to-1 charge. Passive. Your speed is increased by 30%, and you can travel with ease whether that be through the air, sea, or land. Active. You may create a gateway to any destination you have visited or know about so long as you have a clear understanding of its location. One-time use. You might think it's not as impressive, but the gateway is quite a rule-breaking skill if you know how to use it. After all, if you obtain knowledge about the source of all magic, you could teleport there and obtain an unlimited source of mana. Hermes smiled, looking down at his hands. He could already see his form flicker from the lack of power. Well, it's been nice talking to you. I'll be watching your story. Hermes bowed and disappeared from his spot. He was pretty friendly, Shiro muttered. Indeed he is. In such a short time, you've obtained the blessings of 3 gods, and there are more to come. What do you think of the situation? Artemis asked with a smile. It seems strange. Honestly, I'm not really keen on using any of these since the last time I used something given to me by a god. My soul was almost taken away. Shiro narrowed her eyes at Artemis. I can guarantee that these blessings are real. You can even ask Nyx. If you are still curious, let me phrase it like this. They get benefits as well by blessing you. Aphrodite is a little unique as she'll receive benefits from her partners after they bless you. But all in all, it is a win-win situation for all sides. Care to explain the benefits then? Shiro raised her eyebrow. Sure. Each benefit is unique to each god, but for Hermes, he obtains a bit of knowledge about the location you teleported to, but not all of it. So if you do indeed find the source of all magic, he'll also get some knowledge about its location. But the key is that he'll only get some of the knowledge. It's like getting a hint in a puzzle, so you don't have to worry. Artemis replied truthfully. And that solidifies it. Don't trust gods, and just trust yourself. Shiro shrugged. Well, you can trust Athena at least. She gives her blessings out to those she favors like candy to children. She doesn't care about the benefits that she'll get since she's a high-ranking god. And what about you? Are you going to be giving me your blessing? Shiro joked. Unfortunately, no, since my blessings are useless on you. There are a few types of blessings: utility, tool, and stat-based. The one that Athena gave you is stat-based, and the same goes with Hermes, but his is a mix of stat and utility. The one that Aphrodite gave to the sword is utility-based. As for my blessing, it is solely tool-based, which means that it'll improve your performance with the bow. But with what I can tell, it seems like you can master any tool you use, so my blessings are obsolete on you. Artemis admitted with a soft sigh. Fair enough. However, I will say that I will give you my blessing anyways for 2 reasons. Artemis smiled as Shiro paused for a moment before resuming her steps. And they are: the first reason is that the second part of my blessings helps you a little, and the second reason is that after you collect a certain amount of blessings, you'll receive something from the system. Me giving you mine is to speed up the process. Artemis smiled. Just out of curiosity, am I able to reject these blessings, or are they just forcefully put on me? Shiro asked. You can reject them if you want. The system will remove them for you. Artemis answered before drawing her symbol in the air, pushing it towards Shiro. Her form dimmed down slightly. Blessing of Artemis. You are guaranteed to hit every shot that you take with any ranged attack at the cost of 5% of your mana per shot. However, this does not affect their guard, so they can still block the attack. All healing spells/skills that affect you and the people around you are 20% more effective. With this, my job is done. Good luck with Nyx. It's not often that she'll invite someone personally. She even gave you a glimpse of the future too. Artemis smiled. Amen. It was rather handy. I'll see you next time, I suppose, if I get the chance. Shiro waved her hand as Artemis nodded her head and disappeared. Once Artemis disappeared, Shiro glanced towards the peak of the mountain. There, she could see several figures waiting for her on the steps, while a silhouette of a throne could be seen on the top of the mountain. Narrowing her eyes, Shiro understood that the silhouette belonged to the ruler of these gods, Zeus. Before she could get to Zeus, there were still a few gods that were standing on the stairs, waiting for her approach. One of which held a golden trident, and Shiro guessed that he was Poseidon. He stood at an astounding 7 foot tall, with slightly black hair that was showing some signs of gray. He wore only a waistcloth and some light armor, leaving his chest and abdomen exposed. His muscles were well defined, but Shiro found no interest in them, as she had seen her fair share of nice physiques. If she was a girl who loved muscles, she would have loved the cunt named Ikari. So you're the one that Aphrodite kept mentioning. I can see why she wanted to make you her chosen. Your beauty is quite obvious. Poseidon narrowed his eyes as he surveyed her up and down. Detecting obvious signs of lust in his gaze, Shiro felt goosebumps on her body and wanted to stab the man immediately. Yes, I am, was Shiro's reply as she continued to walk up the steps. Seeing her obvious dismissal of him, Poseidon was rather displeased and slammed his trident in front of her. Asterisk crack. Raising her eyebrow at the cracked staircase, Shiro glanced at Poseidon. What? Is this how you greet a god? Poseidon asked. PFT, well, respect is earned through one's actions. You don't automatically get my respect since you're a god. Plus, so far your actions have told me that you think more with your D*ck than you do with your head. Shiro huffed. Poochie. Feeling the urge to drown this woman in front of him, Poseidon clenched his trident as his anger was obvious. However, before he could make a move, a hand clasped against his shoulder. Don't try to F*ck every woman you see now. It's rather disgusting to see. The red-haired man laughed as his fiery eyes glared at Poseidon. Get your filthy hands off me, Ares. I will kill you where you stand. I have not forgotten about the murder of my son, Halorothios. Poseidon glared back at Ares. I murdered the useless sh*t because he *ped my daughter. Ares retorted as his aura started to bleed into the atmosphere, making it hard for Shiro to breathe. Oi, can the two of you shut the F*ck up before you embarrass yourself anymore? A dark voice rang out as the two froze up for a minute before, clicking their tongues. Che, I'll give you the blessing now. Poseidon glared at Shiro and snapped his finger. Blessing of Poseidon. When you are near any source of water, your power grows. When you are at sea, you become twice as strong. Your water and ice elements are more effective and may ignore resistances. Marine life find it calming to be near you, and you have an affinity with water-based entities. Right after giving Shiro his blessing, Poseidon didn't want to stay any longer and disappeared from his spot. Coward. Ares huffed before grinning at Shiro. So then, I'll also give you my blessings. And just before I go, just know that I enjoy watching you fight. He laughed, snapping his fingers. A red sigil appeared in the air before entering Shiro's arm. Blessing of Ares. Whenever you enter combat, you passively emit a fighting aura which grows with the intensity of the battle. At its peak, you can consume all of the aura and infuse your next attack with the might of God. This attack ignores all forms of defense. Once you consume all of the aura, it resets and will slowly grow once more. Anaesthetic more times. This is used during the same day. The harder it is to make the aura grow. Also, be careful of the next guy. Piss him off, and he'll drag your soul out. Ares waved and faded away. Raising her eyebrows at Ares' warning, Shiro could guess that the next god was most likely Hades, god of the underworld, materializing out of the shadow. A gloomy dark-haired man with a rather unkempt stubble glanced towards Shiro. His hair covered a portion of his face, which revealed his pale complexion. There were also dark bags under his eyes, which showed a severe lack of sleep. I apologize about my brother and Ares. The two don't get along very well, and Poseidon is like Zeus in some regard. Hades sighed. I figured. Though I must say, I didn't expect you to apologize. Aren't you like an evil god or something? Shiro asked curiously. Is that what mortals think of me now? I suppose things haven't changed much. Hades shrugged. So you're not an evil god? No. Just because I guide the souls of the dead doesn't mean I'm evil. Hades yawned before sitting down on the base of his own statue. Now then, as one of the higher-ranked gods, I have quite a few blessings, and I'll allow you to pick one. I cannot merge them together since there is still a limit to your mortal body. Despite having the bloodline of a phoenix, you cannot handle too many blessings. Just yet. Ares knew this and gave you only one of his blessings, but my brother Poseidon was actually so petty and merged a few together into one. I would have liked to give you more since you're quite compatible with my blessings. Hades shook his head. Now, here are the options for you. I can improve your rift, grant you knowledge and a certain degree of power over souls. You can have almost perfect stealth which hardly anything can see through, and the last one I can grant you is to infuse yourself with some of my power and become a demigod for a short time. Hades offered with a grin. I want knowledge and power over souls. Shiro said without hesitating. If she could understand and control souls better, there was a chance that she could find Kuromi once more. Are you sure? Do you not want to think about this some more? Hades asked with a raised eyebrow. No, this is fine. Shiro shook her head with a smile. If she could get her older sister back, there was nothing else that she would want. Very well. Hades nodded and conjured up a black and purple sigil. Blessing of Hades. You have an almost perfect understanding of souls and can control them to some extent. Should you disarm and render an opponent defenseless, you are able to rip out their souls with ease. You may choose to return, relocate, or destroy their souls. During their soul state, You can prevent the soul from reincarnating so long as you are in contact with them. Thank you. Shiro smiled as Hades nodded his head. Good luck with my brother. Thankfully for you, Nyx is backing you so Zeus wouldn't do anything too drastic. Nyx is the only one that Zeus is afraid of. Hades reminded before fading away, continuing. Up the steps, she could see a few figures of gods watching from their statues, but made no action to interact with her, which was okay for Shiro. Because right now, she had no energy to spare to deal with their antics, as she was near the top. Each step was taken with great difficulty. Asterisk crack. Flinching slightly, Shiro could feel her body fracture from the pressure, but her natural healing quickly patched it up. Unfortunately for her, her body continued the cycle of being broken and healed. Feeling nothing but pain, Shiro was tempted by the thought of taking a break and adapting to the pain, but her instincts urged her to go on point 1 step, 2 step, 3 steps. Without looking anywhere else, Shiro was solely dedicated to taking the next step forward, increasing the burden on her body. Asterisk bang. Taking the final step, Shiro found herself at the top of Mount Olympus. Congratulations, you have scaled the mountain of the gods in one go. Without taking a single break or rest, you have demonstrated great willpower. You are rewarded with the following title. Title: Virtue of Fortitude. So long as your HP is not 0, you can continue to fight no matter how tired you are, pushing your body further past your limit as long as your enemy is still in front of you. Once the enemy is dead, you will feel all of the pain accumulated during this moment and suffer a backlash equal to how much you have pushed your body. This cannot be relieved through any methods and must heal naturally. During your ascent, you have acquired several blessings. Some are small boosts in power of the lesser gods, while others blessed you anonymously with passive effects. You receive the following reward. Blessing of the Greek Pantheon. Each blessing is now slightly more effective, and you will gain an additional 10,000 assignable points per level up for each blessing. Current blessings: Asteria, Athena, Aphrodite, Ares, Artemis, Hades, Hermes, Poseidon, Nyx. So you have arrived at last. Zeus narrowed his eyes. Nyx has been awaiting your arrival. If you follow me, I'll take you to her. Zeus said as Shiro furrowed her brows before shrugged. Sure. Where is she? Shiro asked while glancing at the gods around them. She could see a few familiar faces of those she had met recently, while others were unfamiliar. For those that she was familiar with, she could see some traces of worry on the face of Hermes, Athena, Aphrodite, and Artemis. She is further down the mountain. Follow me, and I'll show you the way, Zeus said whilst gesturing towards the back of Mount Olympus. Narrowing her eyes, Shiro shook her head. Nyx told me to meet her on Mount Olympus, and I'm already here. Seeing as though the view is rather nice up here, I think I'll wait. Not to be offensive, but knowing the myths surrounding you, a delicate woman like me worries about following you by herself, you know? Why don't you be a dear and call Nyx over? Shiro said with a smile as Zeus frowned. Some of the gods found her reaction a little humorous, while others were quite displeased seeing her belittled the ruler of gods in such a manner. Are you provoking me, mortal? Zeus narrowed his eyes. Am I? It's up to interpretation, really. Shiro shrugged as dark clouds started to gather above them. I can do the same too. It's a pretty neat ability since it boosts up my power. Shiro laughed and activated her skill, encroaching darkness, shadowing over the dark clouds instantly. A veil of darkness covered Mount Olympus. Snapping his fingers, Zeus had one of the gods summon several motes of light, which lit up the area with a golden hue. Even if you have Nyx's favor, if you continue to provoke the gods, we will strike you down, mortal. At that point, she cannot save you from anything that I want to do. Zeus warned. Oh, really? Now tell me, what do you plan to do with the one who has my favor, little Zeus? A charming voice rang out as Nyx's figure appeared beside Shiro. Took you a while. It's not very nice for a host to keep a guest waiting. Shiro chuckled. It's the second time I'm making an avatar to meet you. Remember, the system is rather strict, and I must say, you have a knack for pissing off gods, huh? Nyx raised her eyebrow. It's what I do. Shiro grinned. Let us leave now. We have much to talk about. And Zeus, if I find out that you made her friend's trials harder, then I can guarantee that you'll have a bad time. Nyx warned with a glare. Clicking his tongue, Zeus nodded his head. Good. Now if you don't mind us, we'll take our leave now. Nyx smiled. Summoning a portal, she stepped through with Shiro following behind her. Once the two were gone from the peak of the mountain, Zeus slammed his hand against the armrest of his throne. His face was filled with anger as Nyx always pushed him around like he was nothing. Unfortunately, he couldn't do anything about it as she was indeed stronger than him. Thinking about it for a moment, he figured that he could probably make things a little harder for Shiro outside of the trials in the real world. All he needed to do was to contact those who he had chosen as his representatives. However, he could not be the only one to do this, so he must find a few gods that were on his side. From what he had seen, Shiro had already befriended a few gods, so he'll need to exclude them from this. Sweeping his gaze through the crowd of gods, he noticed a few of them being displeased about Shiro, and his brother, Poseidon, was one of them. Good, he thought with a smile. ####. Stepping through the portal, Shiro quickly adjusted her eyesight and noticed that they were in the middle of a rather barren landscape. Where are we? Shiro asked curiously. My home, Tartarus. Nyx replied with a chuckle. Tartarus? Isn't it supposed to be filled with tormented souls and fire? It is. If you want, I can take you to that part of my home. I figured that you'd rather it be quiet around us while we speak. Nyx smiled. True. Having people scream over your conversation isn't exactly pleasant, is it? Shiro shrugged. Hence why I brought us to the quiet part of Tartarus. Now then, what were we talking about the last time we met? Nyx asked. Last time I asked you about your goal in showing me all of this, and you replied that I've caught your interest, followed up by we can talk more when I come to Mount Olympus. Shiro replied. Beta yes. All right, of course. Take a seat, I'll tell you about that now. Nyx nodded. Waving her hands, a set of tables and chairs appeared in front of them. Right then, the reason I showed you all of that is because you're the lifeline of this world, as you have already discovered. If you die, the universe will reset in due time. It won't reset immediately, but the world will continue to deteriorate. Now, the unfortunate part of this is that only a few selected people are allowed to know about it. If you try to mention this to anyone who isn't meant to know, the system will automatically censor what you want to say. Hence why little Zeus is probably planning something against you right now. Nyx shook her head. Waving her hand, a screen appeared in front of the two of them showing Zeus' anger after they left. While I can't exactly be courteous to someone who wants to **CK everything that has a vagina. Shiro shrugged. I don't blame you. However, unless he intervenes personally, I can't do anything against him. So until then, the most I can do is help. You get stronger. Nyx smiled. Amen, it's fine. I can probably take care of Zeus myself sooner or later. Also, if you don't mind me asking, how are my friends? Shiro asked. They're doing fine. Helion is meeting with Hephaestus, as you have guessed. Ian has actually met two gods, Demeter and Hades. Nyx chuckled. Wait, aren't those two enemies? If I remember things correctly, Hades kidnapped her daughter and made her his wife. Shiro raised her eyebrow. Yup, hence why it's rather comical. Right now, the two are arguing right now. Hades is quite nice most of the time, but there's just something about Demeter that annoys him. He's had a stable marriage with Persephone recently, but he still hasn't sorted things out with Demeter yet. Nyx shook her head with a shrug. Amen, what about the others then? Lysandra, Lyrica, Aram, Sylvia, Chinyu, and Madison. Lysandra is a special case. She was actually visited by the primordial god of light, Ether. Don't worry, it's not the same as the light god and light goddess that you are enemies with. That would be really awkward if that was the case. Lyrica was visited by a few gods, one of which is Heracles, and they're discussing the nature of her trial right now. Aram was visited by Atlas. To my surprise, Sylvia was visited by the father-son duo of Apollo and Asclepius. Chinyu was visited by Aeolus, Deimos, Erebus, and Thanatos, while Madison was visited by quite a few gods as well. One of the more notable gods is Kratos, who represents strength and power. Hearing that her friends were doing well, Shiro sighed in relief. That's good. I'm guessing I'll get a trial from you by the end of this. Shiro asked as Nyx nodded. Naturally, as that is the goal of the god trials. But before that, I want to talk to you a little more. Primarily on the second member who is supporting you. And who is that? You mentioned her the last time we met. Shiro asked. It's my mother, Chaos. Nyx replied with a chuckle as Shiro widened her eyes. Wait, what? I know. I was surprised too when I felt her blessing on you, as she usually watches things happen. She can't show herself often as the restraints around her are one of the most annoying in this universe, but you have indeed met her before. I believe she told you good luck? Nyx chuckled. So that was her. Shiro smiled as she remembered the mysterious woman that she had met previously. Searching through her memories, Shiro remembered the white-haired woman who wore a black dress similar to her. She stood in the middle of a large hall with motes of light that danced around her. Before she left the space, the woman had turned to her and mouthed the words, "Good luck, young one." Yes, that was my mother. Her identity is very special, as you can guess, due to the fact that she is chaos. The fact that she has blessed you means that you are truly this universe's final lifeline. Nyx smiled. What did she bless me with exactly? Shiro asked curiously. Retention of memories and the fusion of abilities from your past life, especially one that is similar to her own powers, albeit a little different. In other words, the power of creation and balance. Right now, her role is more of a balancer of the system, and she makes sure that everything is in order. However, if she continues to do so, the universe is doomed to reset over and over again. Hence why she made an exception for you, who obtained a power that bore resemblance to her own. Creation and balance. Your power creates, but you must find a balance in your creation, or else the creation fails. Nyx chuckled. That's why you still have the Snowmancer class, despite it being an anomaly from a different garden and your body not being the same. So chaos was the cause of my reincarnation, I suppose, or rather, retention of memories. Otherwise I would have continued to live as Kuromi. Shiro sighed. Not quite. You would not have continued to live as Kuromi since the lifeline was broken. What my mother did was instead deploy a failsafe to prevent the final lifeline from truly disappearing. Every time a person reincarnates, their slate is wiped clean. Those who were mass murderers could become saviors in their next life. You're no different. You're not Nitri, nor are you Kuromi. You are a whole new entity who retained her memories of the last 2 lives that she lived. Hence why you were registered with a new name by the system, since you're someone new. Nyx explained. Though to make it so that you could actually obtain your past powers and memories, my mother had to suffer a little, hence why she was locked up in the timeless vault. I'm guessing that you've seen the motes of lights, right? Those are the anomalies that she needs to solve, and some of them stretch out into the past. One of the anomalies is your old pal Ikari, who was turned into an anomaly by the light goddess, who coincidentally was also one. While she cannot change what had happened in the past, she can change the future. Kuromi should have been the one. But Ikari met her way too soon due to what you have done in your past life when you were affected by Ikari's anomaly. Like a domino effect, the light goddess corrupted Ikari, and Ikari changed your fate. Therefore, she had to make a second backup plan, which is you, Shiro. Nyx gestured at Shiro, who continued to stay silent. For your third life, my mother had to make sure that you can become a proper lifeline, so she infused some of her powers into you. Every time you evolve, your limit is increased, and the things that you can obtain within that class exceeds what is counted as the norm. In one way, I suppose you are now a primordial like me. So you're telling me that everything I've obtained is due to Chao's help and not my own efforts? Shiro looked down at her hands. Not quite. You can't clap with one hand after all. You need efforts from both sides, and the fact that you have achieved power of this level at your current stage astounds me, since this was much higher than what my mother had expected. Nyx shook her head. I see. Anyways, I can't tell you any more about mother since I am also bound by the system, so let's talk about your trial. Nyx smiled. MN, so what do I have to do? You said that the last trial that you gave me was just a taster, no? So what is the trial going to be this time? Shiro asked. This trial is a little special since the rewards are rather amazing. What rewards are we talking about? I cannot say, but trust me, even I'm a little jealous, but it unfortunately doesn't fit me, so I can't obtain it. Nyx shrugged. Oh, a reward that even the goddess Nyx is jealous of? You have my undivided attention. Shiro chuckled. Exactly. Now then, the trial will happen in a different realm. The Forgotten Realm, to be exact, and the time is similar to the dilation you feel in dungeons. A day in there is an hour out here. What you do in the Forgotten Realm affects your grade. As you can guess, and the clear conditions vary, but the base clear condition is for you to obtain the divinity of the primordial gods. Gaia, Uranus, Tartarus, Kronos, and me, Nyx. Just a note for you. In the Forgotten Realm, You cannot use the power you have obtained in the outside world, and only the power you obtain inside. Thankfully for you, there are towers that represent a god's divinity within this realm. Each tower will grant you a god's power should you succeed. However, you must remember that a person can only hold so much power in their body, so once you reach a certain amount of skills, you cannot obtain any more. Your limit is 6 powers, while a normal being in the Forgotten Realm can only have 3. Nick smiled. Wait, so that means I can only get 1 power before the rest have to be the primordial ones. Shiro widened her eyes. Yup. For great power, one must face an equal amount of adversity. Good luck, Shiro. I do hope that you'll succeed. Nick smiled as a giant Tier 8 magic circle expanded beneath Shiro, stretching across the horizons of Tartarus. Before Shiro could even say anything, her body flickered away. Hashtag, blinking her eyes. Shiro clicked her tongue in annoyance and sat up. Looking around her, she found herself in a rather worn-out bed with a rugged cover that had seen years of use. The color of the cover was faded and the edges were ripped. With Tilda Besto her side was a makeshift table that had rocks supporting one of the legs so that it didn't tip over. Getting off of the bed, Shiro found her body devoid of strength, and a gut-wrenching hunger assaulted her mind. For F***CK. Sake. Of course I have to start in this condition. Shiro thought to herself and looked down at her dress. Her smile couldn't help but twitch as she was essentially wearing a potato sack with holes cut out for the head and arms. Swiping her hand out, she checked the current trial. God Trial, the Forgotten Realm. In the Forgotten Realm, power is represented by the power of gods which you obtain. When a person reaches the age of 18, they are to undergo their first trial to obtain a divinity which belongs to one of the gods. If they refuse, they cannot attempt any god's trials after this year. Should you obtain a weak divinity, you are doomed to live an average life. But if you decide to go for a powerful divinity, the chances of you losing your life is great. Many have trained for this day so that they may ascend to become one of the 5 great warriors who have cleared the primordial trials. Current scenario. You are an orphan raised in the nameless church located in the countryside city of Trey. You were quiet in your upbringing, and your nature has caused you to be excluded from making proper friends. Today is your birthday, and it also represents the time where you need to complete a god's trial. Basic knowledge of this village and surroundings has been implanted. Clear condition 1. Obtain the 5 primordial divinities. Nyx, primordial goddess of the night. Gaia, primordial goddess of the earth. Uranus, primordial god of the sky. Tartarus, primordial god of the underworld. Kronos, primordial god of time. There may be more clear conditions depending on the actions that you choose. Looking at the display, Shiro scratched her head and noticed how rough her hair was. The ends were damaged, and the pristine white color was now tainted by browns. Goals of the day: food, a bath, proper clothes, research on which trials I can do. Shiro muttered. Looking around the room, she tried to find anything that can be used as a weapon for now. Unfortunately for her, the best that she could find was a small rusted fruit knife with a dull edge. That'll do for now, she thought to herself. Glancing out of the hole in the wall, she could see 5 large pillars in the distance and understood her objectives. Let the trials begin, I suppose, she thought with a grin and walked out of her room. The moment she walked out of her room, Shiro was greeted by a hall of children who were eagerly awaiting their breakfast. Upon seeing Shiro, they ignored her as she wasn't the lady with the food. Ignoring them, Shiro sat by near one of the corners and started to browse through the memories that the system had implanted to help her with this trial. From what she could understand, in order to attempt one of the trials, one must make their way to the towers. The higher ranking and more powerful the god, the bigger the tower. Unfortunately, the village of Tria was in the countryside where there were hardly any god trials, so she'd need to find a way for her to reach one of the bigger cities, or else her first divinity will be useless for her to attempt the primordial trials. Since I'm only allowed 1 divinity before attempting the primordial trials, I need to find a god that can provide me with the power to accomplish this. Heracles is definitely one of them, but it's probably hard to find his trial out of the many that fill this place. Shiro thought with a frown. With the way this place is set up, she'd need to adapt to the situation and find the most suitable trial. She had a year to find and complete the trial, or else she'd lose her qualification. Next up was the matter of actually completing the trial. Most people in this world will choose a lesser deity for their first trial and complete the test. Unfortunately, she was not given that freedom since she had to complete the 5 hardest trials in this realm. Since she was limited to one divinity, she had to make this one count. Furrowing her brows, she tried to remember gods that had helpful powers but were not too strong, or else she wouldn't be able to complete the trial. Right now, she was in her base state, so she had to be careful of not biting off more than what she could chew. While she was in the midst of thought, a bowl with some gruel was laid out in front of her. Eating it quickly to fill her hunger, Shiro was unsatisfied and wanted some more. Glancing at the old fruit knife that she had taken from the room, she figured that she could probably hunt a wild animal and cook their meat for food. She also wanted to take a bath since her body was filthy. Right now, seems like I'll need to go steal some things from the village before I leave. It's not like I plan to stay here anyways, Shiro thought to herself. Standing up, she left the orphanage without saying anything and looked around the village. Most of the houses here were made from simple brick and the area was quite open. The south of the orphanage was a small stream that had crops growing by the side. Thinking about it for a moment, Shiro figured that she could probably give herself a good wash further down the stream so that her body wasn't seen by the people here. But before that, she wanted some proper clothes. Narrowing her eyes at the back of the orphanage, she could see the same lady who had given her the food drying some clothes. Unfortunately, they were pretty much the same as what she was currently wearing. TCH, just my luck. Shiro clicked her tongue, shaking her head. She decided to go for a quick walk through the village in order to find any clothes that were lying around so that she could take them for herself. Unfortunately, the clothes in this village were all rather poor in quality, so Shiro gave up on looking for some clothes. If anything, she can just use the hide from the animals that she'll kill later. Walking back to the stream, she started to follow along the side and left the village. The stream led to 2 locations. One was a forest, and the other was an empty grass plain. Choosing the forest route, Shiro walked while rubbing her stomach from the hunger. Despite having eaten a bowl of gruel, it was extremely watered down, and she had essentially drunk water instead. Ano sighing softly, she glanced around her and made sure that she was alone. Once she was sure, she took her potato sack dress off and set it down by the side. Sinking her body into the stream, she started to wash the dirt off her body. It took her half an hour to properly wash herself. But in doing so, she felt much more refreshed. Looking at her reflection, she saw that she essentially looked the same, only with slightly rough hair, and her complexion was rather poor. She was quite slim in an unhealthy way, and her lips were cracked. Seeing herself in the stream, she was reminded of Achilles' legend and figured that he was probably a good choice for one. After all, he was bathed in the river Styx and became immortal except for his heel, which caused his downfall. Shaking her head, she was about to step out of the river when she saw a pair of eyes glaring at her from the bush. Instantly going on guard, Shiro quickly grabbed her old fruit knife and prepared for combat if it was required. Asterisk growling. Hearing a low growl, Shiro crouched down slowly and prepared to lash out as well. While she may be weakened right now, she could still use the monster's own strength against him. Unfortunately, her foot slipped on one of the rocks in the river and her guard was compromised. *T. Understanding that she had broken her own guard, Shiro quickly used her spare hand to push herself to the side so that the monster didn't kill her instantly. Using the river stream to reposition herself, she quickly crawled out of the river and glared towards the monster in the center who had tried to pounce on her. The monster resembled a lynx with golden brown fur that was now drenched with water. His golden eyes glared towards her as he slowly swam to the side and dried himself with a quick shake of his body. Unfortunately for Shiro, unlike a normal lynx, this monster was the size of an adult human and had long sharp claws and spikes similar to a porcupine sticking out of his back. Furrowing her brows, she figured that it was probably hard to kill this thing with just an old fruit knife and that she probably needed something longer. However, it did not mean that she wasn't going to try. Taking a deep breath, she dashed towards the monster and quickly grabbed a loose rock by the side. Throwing it towards him, she took the chance hop backwards in time to avoid his swipe. Grabbing the extended claw, she fell on her back and kicked the monster over her body. Asterisk howl. Crying out in anger, The monster quickly adjusted his body and pounced towards her, but Shiro had already rolled out of the way. Using the tree as cover, she jumped up and kicked the beast into the river. While he was thrashing around, Shiro jumped in as well and pinned his claws under her feet as best she could before digging her fruit knife into his eye. Giving the knife a quick spin, she pulled the knife and quickly backed off as the pain caused the monster to attack wildly. Unfortunately for Shiro, one of his claws had managed to swipe against her outer thigh, causing a large amount of blood to flow into the water. SSSSSS. Taking a sharp breath of air, Shiro glared back at the monster and had a single thought. You're my King dinner tonight. With her knife destroying one of his eyes, the monster's vision was now impaired. Taking this chance, tried her best to run towards the monster, but the wound on her thigh prevented her from accomplishing this properly. However, it was good enough. Seeing her limped run, the monster lashed out at her once more as Shiro quickly ducked down into the river. Grabbing his hind legs, she quickly dragged him down and started to stab toward his abdominal area and chest. The monster kicked his hind legs and scratched at Shiro in order to get away, but she managed to dodge most of his attacks with minor injuries. After a few short moments, the monster fell limp as Shiro managed to kill him with a major wound on her thigh and several cuts around her stomach and chest with varying degrees of seriousness. Most of them were shallow, but a few were deep, and Shiro had to quickly patch them up. Thankfully for her, she had obtained her dinner for the night. Taking a moment to rest up, Shiro tried her best to patch up her wounds, but it was rather difficult considering her lack of tools and fabrics. The only outfit that she had right now was a potato sack that barely extended past her waist, leaving her completely exposed should she jump at in the end. Shiro decided to just give them a quick wash to make sure they're clean before searching for a few dry branches to make a fire to cook her dinner, spending the next hour or so to set everything up. Shiro sat down on a tree root and held the badly cut piece of meat over the fire with another branch. While she was waiting for it to cook, she was thinking about her next steps. If my memory is correct, once I make my way through this forest, I should find myself in front of a small town. It's a gamble, but I should be able to make my way through as long as I'm careful. Shiro thought to herself, looking down at the cut on her thighs, which she wrapped up with her potato sack dress for now to stop the bleeding. Shiro sighed. She'd have to go commando for a little while, or else she'll probably die of blood loss. Even though it was shameful, it had to be done in the name of survival. Once the meat was roasted, she started to eat it with renewed vigor. While it wasn't as tasty as the food that her mom and Ian made, it was much better than the watered-down gruel that she had this morning. While she was eating, she couldn't help but feel a little lightheaded from the blood loss, but shook herself out of it. I can probably win another fight with a monster. After that, I'll be dead. Thankfully, I can use the bones of this monster to make some better weapons than the fruit knife. She thought to herself. For the rest of the day, Shiro focused on making a makeshift cloak with the monster's hide and a short sword with the femur. Unfortunately, she wasn't able to sharpen it effectively, so she had to spend much longer to make it into something that she could use. During this, she had accidentally broken the tip, so it had to be repurposed into a dagger, with the experience of making a weapon. From the femur, she was able to create the short sword effectively on the second attempt. With a bone dagger and short sword in hand, Shiro was a little more confident in killing whatever came at her next, but her wounds still caused her some worry. However, now that she had made a small cloak for now with the hide, she could cut up her potato sack dress and make a more efficient bandage, bandaging all of her wounds. After cleaning and cutting the potato dress sack carefully, Shiro started to prepare the tendon of the monster so that she could carry the meat to be used later. She didn't know when she'd hunt her next meal, so she needed to be careful with what she left behind. By the time that the sky started to turn orange with a hint of purple, Shiro had just finished making everything she needed right now, and some shelter would be welcome. Looking around her, she tried to look for a tree that was suitable for rest, but the trees near the edge were all rather short in height, so she'll need to venture deeper in order to find a decent place for rest. Her wounds were still quite fresh. Shiro had to be careful so as to not make them worse. Looking for a large branch that she could use as a crutch, she then quickly filled up the bone cups up with water. She had made these by scooping out the bone marrow and used some of the tendons and hide to act as a cap so that the water didn't escape. Filling around 15 cups, which she hung around her body with some leftover tendons, Shiro started to make her way through the forest. After walking for an hour or so, she found a decent tree and decided to use it for now. Trying her best to climb up, she caused the wound on her thigh to reopen, which caused her to flinch, but she pushed herself up so that she could make it, so that it was worth it. Ao sitting down on the branch, she grabbed one of her bone cups and drank all of the contents. Despite her trying to wash them out as best she could, the aftertaste was still horrendous, but it'll do for now. Tomorrow, she was going to climb to the very top and see how far this forest stretched out for. Hopefully, it shouldn't take her too long to escape. Looking up at the sky, Shiro sighed and closed her eyes. 1 hour has passed outside. I wonder how the others are doing. Shiro thought to herself and slowly fell asleep. ##### For the next few days, Shiro tried to avoid combat if she could, since the monsters she saw were rather large in size, as in they completely dwarfed her, and should she even try to hunt them, she'd be signing her own death warrant during this time. Her wounds had mostly been closed up, and she had removed the bandages which stuck to her wound due to the dried blood, but a few careful rinses, and she was able to remove them without reopening her wound too much. Following along the stream, her food was running out despite her rations, but the end was near. She had constantly made sure to get a general feel of the area and knew that the town was only a day or two away. There were a few small animals that tried to run away from her, but were turned into a few short snacks. They weren't the most appetizing, but they were enough. With only a little more to go till the town, Shiro gave herself another quick wash in the stream while making sure to clean her wounds and not soak them in water for too long. Looking at her reflection, Shiro couldn't help but shake her head at how much weight she had lost, which was surprising as she was already malnourished in the Forgotten Realm. It was a surprise that she could even hunt any beasts down in her current state. I wonder if there's a place like the orphanage in the town where I can rest for free. If not, I'll have to go rest on somebody's roof or something. Shiro thought to herself, as she had no money on hand. She couldn't buy anything, and that included transport. Meaning, she'll need to trouble some poor folk for some money, which may or may not include stealing. Shaking her head, Shiro wrapped the hide cloak around her body once more and started to make her way out of the forest. While she was walking out, she couldn't help but hear some cries in the distance, followed up by a monstrous roar. Raising her eyebrows, she decided to go and have a look at what was happening. Who knows? She might be able to get someone's favor if they were in danger. Making her way over as quietly as possible, she saw a father and son talking to each other while a monster growled at them in wariness. The monster was currently trapped in some nets and had wooden spears sticking out of his body. Looking at the monster, Shiro could see that it was similar to the one she had killed the moment she entered the forest. Only this one was much bigger, and the spikes on his back were flickering with hints of electricity. Before she could say anything, an arrow was shot towards her as she quickly stepped out the way and grabbed the arrow out the air. "What are you doing?" The father howled as the boy flinched. "But I sensed something was there, and I thought it was another monster." The boy replied in slight fear. The bow quivered in his hands as the father quickly ran over to Shiro, who had just caught the arrow. "I'm sorry, are you okay? My son is on edge after helping me hunt the turka." The father apologized while making sure that she wasn't harmed. Seeing her state, he couldn't help but wonder what had happened to her, as she was wearing some beast hide cloak and walked around in her bare foot. Despite not being able to see her body, he could tell that she was malnourished. "I'm okay. Is the town nearby?" Shiro asked while giving the arrow to the father. He was a muscular man with short brown hair and a rather impressive beard. He wore simple clothing that stretched due to his muscles. "Ah yes. If you travel down the stream for another hour and a half, you'll reach the town," the man replied as Shiro nodded her head. Walking past the monster, Shiro heard him growl at her and glared at him with killing intent. This caused the monster to cower with fear as whimpers could be heard. Leaving the duo with their hunt, Shiro made her way to the town. Upon leaving the forest, Shiro could see the river flowing through a bridge and some water wheels. Raising her eyebrows, she walked up the side of the river bank and made her way into the town, where people would glance towards her with curiosity and disgust, but Shiro ignored them. Her goal here was to A, find some clothing, and B, find some information on which trials are where. Looking around for a little while, she managed to spot a few clothes that were hung out to dry. Narrowing her eyes, she made herself unseen through the alleys and nabbed a pair of shirts and pants. They were a little large, but it would do for now, quickly dashing away from the scene before they could spot her. Changing into the still damp clothes, Shiro looked at her feet and wondered if she should find herself some footwear, as it was rather uncomfortable to be walking around in barefoot, especially in a town like this. Furrowing her brows, Shiro grabbed her old fruit knife that she had kept since it was the sharpest thing on her and started to cut some pieces of her hide cloak. Now that she had some clothes underneath, she could actually start using some of the hide to make shoes. Using some of the tendons that she had used to wrap the meat, she tied the hide around her feet so that they acted as shoes. It wasn't exactly the nicest looking, but it will do for now. With her clothes sorted out, Shiro wanted to look for some alcohol so that she could save it as disinfectant, but stealing alcohol was definitely much harder than stealing clothes since they would be stored in secure locations. Giving up on the alcohol, she looked around for the stables. Seeing an elderly man brushing the horses, Shiro walked up. "Excuse me," she called out. "Yes? What can I do for you?" The elderly man glanced back and frowned, but allowed her to ask her question. "Do you know what kind of trials are near here?" "You're looking for the trials? Do you have any money to pay for this information?" he asked while narrowing his eyes. "Money? No, I don't." Shiro shook her head. "Then don't bother me." He waved his hand and ushered her away. Furrowing her brows, Shiro was a little annoyed, but there wasn't much she could do. "So if I come back with some money, you'll tell me, right?" Shiro asked. Yes, yes. I'll tell you if you bring me some money." The elderly man waved his hand and dismissed her without looking back. Narrowing her eyes, Shiro glanced at his body and spotted a small pouch peeking out from his shirt. Estimating its weight, she figured that she could probably do a quick switch and run away if things get bad. "Please, sir, it's only some information. If you tell me, I'll leave," Shiro asked as she grabbed his arm. Acting as though she was desperate, the man was clearly annoyed. Punching her across the face, he pushed Shiro off his arm and walked inside, ignoring her completely. Spitting some blood on the ground, Shiro clicked her tongue in annoyance and walked away. While she wasn't able to switch the money pouch completely, she managed to loosen it up and grab a few coins the moment he tried to punch her. Our Alpha, even though she could have dodged it with ease, she needed to get some money for her troubles. "At least I got money now." Shiro sighed while glancing down at the few pieces of copper coins that she had managed to secure for herself. "To think I actually took a hit just for some coins." Asterisk sigh. Sighing softly, Shiro looked around for someone else so that she could get some information. The best place would probably be a school. Asking around for a little bit, there were some folk who were nice enough to tell her, and she managed to arrive without any problems. Glancing through one of the windows, Shiro could see an adult teaching some children and decided to wait until the lesson was over. Feeling some hunger once more, Shiro frowned and figured that she probably needed to hunt something either tonight or tomorrow to keep herself in fighting form. After a few hours, the class was over and Shiro waited for the teacher to leave the building. "Excuse me," Shiro called out. "Yes." Looking toward Shiro, the teacher was a little curious as to what this stranger wanted from him. "Are you able to tell me where the god trials are and what god they belong to?" Shiro asked. "I can, but it's getting a little late," the teacher said while glancing up at the sky. "How about this? The school doesn't need money, so you can come tomorrow and I'll tell you during the lesson." He smiled. "It doesn't need money?" Shiro tilted her head. If it did, parents wouldn't send their children to school to learn about the other cities and the places around the world. The teacher shook his head and left the area. I suppose it makes sense since there's probably a high chance that the people living here will continue the family job, such as being a farmer rather than venturing out into the wild. With a goal in mind for tomorrow, Shiro started to walk towards the forest once more so that she could hunt down a monster for some food and shelter for the night. Looking at the copper coins, she figured that she could probably pay the father and son duo for some of the meat if she saw them. That way, she could avoid being wounded in another fight since the wounds still hadn't healed up properly yet. Arriving at the same spot that she had seen the father-son duo, she could spot a drag mark with dried blood, meaning that they were dragging the monster away. Thinking about it for a moment, she eventually decided to follow the tracks and found herself in front of a cabin located in the forest. There was a warm glow coming from the cabin as Shiro figured that they were inside. Knocking on the door, Shiro waited patiently. Asterisk creak. "Oh, it's you from earlier." The father looked at Shiro with surprise. Amen. Can I pay you for some food and shelter tonight? Shiro asked. We don't really have a spare room, but if you don't mind, you can sleep in an empty space. Think of it as an apology for earlier. As for food, since we have just hunted the monster, we've got plenty of meat for a little while. The father smiled kindly. What about the payment? Shiro asked. It's only for a night. Come on in. The father gestured for her to enter as Shiro nodded her head. Seeing the son sitting on a wooden chair while looking at her with curiosity, Shiro stood around awkwardly. Sit down. We're just eating now, so I'll grab a bowl for you. If you don't mind, can I ask you for your name? The father asked. Shiro, what about you and your son? I'm Nam and my son is called Ras. So how come you were traveling through the forest? Nam asked while placing a bowl in front of her. To get to this town. Shiro replied simply. I see. Are you here because of Mr. Terry? Nam asked. Who? He's a warrior that came from one of the larger towns further east, and he teaches people how to fight and keep themselves alive. People from other villages come here to get lessons from him. Nam explained. No, it's not him. All I want is information. On the god trials. Shiro shook her head. Also, you've come of age. You'll probably find some information from the school then. The teacher there is said to have completed a small trial from Athena and received the divinity of knowledge. If you want information, he's the one to go to. Nam smiled. Athena, huh? Shiro smiled, hearing a familiar name. Since he was the one who received her divinity, then her choice of looking for the school was right, talking to the father and son. Duo for a little bit. Shiro eventually found herself a spot next to the window and huddled up carefully so that she didn't reopen her wounds. Closing her eyes, she made sure to keep her guard up just in case the Nam was more than what he seemed. After all, she was a stranger here.